everyone, and welcome once again to Ask the Treksperts, the show where we answer your questions about Star Trek. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
Sarah, today's episode review request comes from the Mind Sifter 22, and he's asked us to review the TNG episode, The Mind's Eye. This is a season, what is it, season 4?
4, I think
Yeah,
it was.
and this is a Geordi-centered episode, and it's about the Romulans, and
Yes.
the Romulans doing their Romulan thing of trying to
being sneaky,
get rid of the Klingon alliance with the Federation, which is kind of a common trend of the Romulan episodes.
Yes, but those are the best stories, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I like them.
Yes.
Quite a bit. Yeah. So we're gonna review The Mind's Eye for you, and here we go. Sarah, why don't you start us off? Give us your favorite thing about this episode.
Okay, favorite thing about... Okay, I can describe this whole episode in one word. Compelling.
Oh, great. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
that just describes this entire episode. And the weird thing about this episode for me is that it's one that I never want to put in the player. I never want to watch it. I never think it's good. And then I put it in the player, and I can't stop watching it.
So it's Yesterday's Enterprise all over again.
It is! I don't know what it is about these episodes. Maybe it's just like early TNG for me.
It seems like a lot of my favorite episodes are that way for you. We'll all talk about them, and then we're doing Defector next, man.
Oh,
because Defector.
I don't know if you can turn me around on that one.
Because Defector, I'm always like, this is such a compelling episode, and you're always like, eh, and I'm like, you don't remember it.
I don't care. I don't want to see it. It's. I know it's Romulans and Romulans rock, but.
But that's what you said about this one.
I know. I'm always this way about this episode. But then at the end of it, I'm like, that was cool. Let's try it again in a couple months.
So what's so compelling about it? Like what makes you want to keep watching?
Maybe just I don't know if it's just the basic concept about Geordi being the Romulan guy on the ship, trying to sabotage everything and kill people. That's cool. I don't know if it's that, or just the way it was filmed, or how the story progresses, or all the little kind of twists and turns it takes along the way, or just you spend most of the episode investigating what you know is happening at that moment. I don't know. It's just cool.
There's definitely an intense ambiance in this one, and I really think that a lot of what keeps the momentum is the score. I mean, the score has a lot to do with it. This is kind of an unusual musical score for season 4 in that it doesn't sound like every other episode. It has, and I mean, it does that kind of '90s electronica thing where it's like really driving the action along. Where it's like, this is important, this is intense, this is some major stuff, and I think that actually has a great deal to do with it for me. And then this really good mystery where you don't really put all the pieces together till the end, and I think that it does a better job of that than a lot of TNG episodes where they're kind of callable. I don't think that this one is. The thing is, you think you know everything because you have this. Because you have this information that the rest of the crew doesn't. You know that Geordi got kidnapped by the Romulans and that they have programmed him to sabotage something. You know that. You have more information than the rest of the crew does. But you don't have all the pieces, and you don't realize that he has an accomplice and that you've seen that accomplice already.
Right, and you have no idea until they decide to tell you who it is, that this guy might actually be working for the Romulans. And it's a huge surprise, and yet it's not really shocking in such a way that you don't buy it.
You've got this Klingon ambassador who really seems like a real Klingon. And that sounds funny, but there's a lot of TNG Klingons where you're like, I don't think they really get the Klingon thing. Either the writer or the director. I mean, the director, the writer or the actor. This guy totally knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he has great lines, especially in the early first couple scenes that he has with Picard, where you totally buy he's a Klingon and he has the right attitude about it, and he has the right dialogue. It's just great. And
he's fun, and so that's the thing, is that you never suspect this guy because you like him.
Yeah.
Or at least I did.
Yeah.
And he's got this great line toward the beginning when because he's come to Picard. Which, by the way, I think is also part of the reason you don't suspect him, because Klingons are always coming to Picard for things after the whole bit with DeRoss and everything, and him being Worf's Chadich and all of that. that whenever you get a Klingon that's hiring Picard to do something, you never suspect the Klingon to be working in cahoots with the Romulans.
It just means the Klingons are very smart because they came to Picard.
Granted, Kim Peck was also part of a conspiracy, but not in the same way. He wasn't working with Romulans, you know. It was a different kind of thing. And so, he's got this great line to Picard toward the beginning when Picard says something in kind of a humble way, and he says, "Your modesty is very human, Captain. I'll forgive it," and or I'll excuse it. I love that. That's really Klingon.
Oh yeah, it's really great.
So you never suspect him, but then when it finally is revealed in really the last 7-8 minutes of the episode that he's that he's actually the real Romulan spy on board. He's not actually Romulan, but he's working. I assume
but he's
that he's working for them. He's the co-conspirator. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And that he's actually working with Geordi, who doesn't know that he's brainwashed.
Right.
Except for the points where the thing kicks in and he then he's programmed to do the things he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
By the time that it finally happens, it's a big shock, but it's not like a non sequitur. It's not like, oh, I don't really buy it. This seems like an afterthought. Like I totally bought it and was surprised.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, as much as I love TNG, when TNG can actually shock and dismay me with a mystery, I'm surprised. That doesn't happen very often with this show.
Yeah, and I love a good mystery, and this definitely was one. So. Yeah, there's not too much really to say about the episode. I mean, it's a pretty simple story. There's not really a B plot.
No, there's not, which is one of the things I really appreciated about it. I liked that it was all centered on this conspiracy, and that you had all the other characters. I mean, it's Geordi centered. Not that it's a character study, but it's Geordi centered, and then all the other characters have like their moments of things that they get to do, which I really kind of appreciated, because a lot of episodes try that and kind of fail at it, where it's just sort of like you got like the token Deanna Troi scene where she, says something kind of stupid. This time those token scenes worked really well. Yeah. And I kind of...
It seemed like all the other characters on the ship were actually fulfilling their own roles.
Yeah.
But we had an immediacy with Geordi in this episode. So we were following him around, and this was how he interacted with the rest of the crew, just doing what they would normally do. That's kind of how I saw it.
I thought that the final scene where Geordi tries to assassinate the governor, the Klingon governor, which is ultimately the plot. And what's funny is we don't even know what the plot is until the last 10 minutes. Yeah. We know that he's going to try to kill someone, because most of what we see Geordi do before that, when he's brainwashed, is the Romulans testing to see how well their brainwashing apparatus actually worked.
Right.
Which is really cool, I thought, that we get to see him kind of go after Chief O'Brien. And
well, he spills a drink on his shoulder, and then he tries to transport weapons to the planet.
Right.
And so then he tries to assassinate the guy.
And so you get to the end of the episode. I just thought that it was all surprisingly well organized, and you get to that last scene, and I thought that all of that was extremely well handled. It's so intense and it's riveting. Yeah. When he like when Data finally figures out everything, and he calls up Worf on the comm.
Yeah, and you really wonder if he's going to get there fast enough.
Yeah.
Because Geordi is right there in the cargo bay.
And I know that it's a bit of a cliche to do like the last minute thing where like the guy steps in just before the shot gets fired, or the bomb is diffused with 2 seconds to spare, that kind of thing. But man, I didn't care this time, because when he aims that phaser and he fires and Worf pulls it up just as it fires, I thought it was so cool that he got a shot off.
Yeah.
All of that is really great. I also wanted to mention that it's sort of a bottle show, and you mentioned that there's some scenes in the office of the governor, which I kind of forgot about, and then we have like a shuttlecraft scene that opens the episode. But for the most part, the majority, and those are standing sets.
And then you're on the Romulan ship for the couple scenes.
But that's also, by this point, that's also a standing set. So, I mean, it's not really a bottle show, but it's close enough that it's kind of impressive that most everything, if not everything, is on standing sets and mostly on the ship sets, and that the stakes are so high.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cool that
we're risking war between the Federation and the Klingons.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
While the whole thing is done on a budget.
Yeah.
I love minimalism.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You had a really cool point while we were watching the episode about how Data was operating and how he works systematically.
Yeah, where once he found out that the E-band frequencies were transmitting signals to Geordi, or I guess to the type of apparatus that Geordi uses when he sees things, and that's probably the only crew member that this could possibly work for.
That's part of what was cool about it.
He still goes and he investigates the shuttlecraft, and he does some extra research, narrowing it down further just to make sure there's no possible other way. It could have been anyone else before he steps in and, tells Worf to go after... he tries to contact Geordi even first. And then he tells Worf to go apprehend Geordi and get him away from, the governor and the people in the cargo bay, because he thinks he might do something. But it seems like if it had been a human person who had...
They would have gone to Picard at the first sign of trouble.
Right off and said, hey, there's this frequency thing, and it's transmitting stuff to what I think is Geordi. Because he's the only guy who uses this stuff, unless it's really, coincidence.
You could make the argument that Data was too thorough, because if he had been a second off...
And it wouldn't, he wouldn't have even been in time.
And so there's a little bit of just plain TV drama going on there.
Yeah, but in this instance it works.
It does. And you don't think about it because it's thrilling and it's a lot of fun to watch.
And it's Data, so you can excuse him not doing something specifically that somebody, a real normal person, would do.
It's neat that he kind of has that character thing where the show is very smart to have him do it the Data way, if that makes any sense. We're like the way Data would investigate is different than the way you or I might investigate.
Yeah.
Probably the only, and I'm not even really going to call this a problem. The episode is fine. The episode's a lot of fun to watch. I would say that just when it character-wise gets really interesting, the show's over. When you get to the end and they start playing very briefly for about a minute and a half with the idea of how would this affect Geordi psychologically when he's talking to Troy. And by the way, Troy's not in a lot of this episode, but the bits she has are actually really great.
Yeah,
There's some
really
great Troy in this episode, and I always feel the need to point that out because I don't usually like her.
Yeah. It's like any time Wesley Crusher has a good scene, right?
Yes, which is maybe even fewer scenes than Troy.
I can't think of one.
For us, anyway. But when you... no, that's cool. When you get to the end of this episode, all of a sudden, it becomes a psychological study for a minute, where he's trying to remember everything that happened to him, and he's angry because he remembers being on Risa, but he wasn't really there.
Yeah.
And I really love how Troy manages to get him to start remembering when she says, when he's describing what it was like being on the shuttle and talking to the computer and trying to pass the time before he gets to Risa, and then Troy says, well, what was the first thing you did when the Romulan ship shows up? Or no, she doesn't even ask it in a question, she says, did you do this first, whatever it was, and he says, well, no, the first thing wait a minute.
Yeah.
And that stuff is really great.
Yeah.
My only qualm with it is I would have liked to have seen that conversation continue. I would have and I'm a character guy, I'm a story guy. I would have liked to have seen the follow up to this episode.
Well, absolutely, but I think in a way
that's not to say that the story is not complete.
Since there would not have been a follow up to this episode, it being an episodic show, Next Generation.
Right.
I think they capped it off where they needed to.
Okay.
Because it leaves us wanting more. And it's the kind of thing where...
But the problem is we know we're not going to get it, and so that sort of sucks.
But it makes the episode more intriguing, because then you follow the conversation, because you know where that's going to go. I mean, you can imagine it. And so the credits roll,
fair enough,
and it leaves you thinking, fill in the blank for how Geordi progresses and how he gets over this.
You're saying that it's interesting, but there's not really a story there.
Right.
That after that, you know what's going to happen. That's the predictable part. Geordi's going to, over time, get rehabilitated and he'll be fine.
Yeah.
And we know that.
Yeah. And so it's probably more of an interesting thing to play out in your own head, and you feel like you haven't gotten quite all the pieces, as opposed to them laying it out for you.
That's an excellent point. No, you sold me on that. Good point. What would you rate the episode?
I was going to give this a lot lower rating than I am going to rate it now.
All right, go ahead.
So, 3.5.
3.5?
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to go there. But
wow.
Yeah. The problem is it's a really good episode, but I never think of it that way when we get a couple months down the road from it. So
I think it's a great episode. I think it's solid. I would have liked. Maybe part of my problem is that in the grand scheme, I feel like Geordi got a little bit shafted, and he's a character that I really, really like. And so you get a lot of these episodes where Geordi is sort of the central character, but we don't really learn anything about him. It's not really, he doesn't really get a character arc, and that sort of bugs me. And I guess I'm just a little bit hoity-toity that way. But
well, I was just going to say all of his character development happens on a different show.
Yeah, exactly.
Reading Rainbow.
That's. I just thought you meant like these shows set that up, and then we have to play the rest of it out in our own head. But that's where it's interesting. You know, Geordi gets made fun of sometimes, especially after Generations, for just being there so people can mess with his visor. And this is one of those, but is actually done in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go for a 3. I'm gonna go for a 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
I think that it's better than average. I don't think that it is the most stellar Romulan episode.
Yeah. Well,
certainly
I think not. Yeah, but
and
it's still up there.
And I could even name Romulan shows I think are better. I think Defector is a better episode than this.
Timescape.
I
know it's not like Romulan conspiracy sort of stuff.
Is a lot of fun. It's on the same level as this on fun.
Yeah.
Of fun. Yeah. I think Redemption's a better episode than this.
Yeah. No, you could definitely name Romulan episodes that are better. But
and so
this is up there too.
I don't want to go quite to 3.5 just because I feel like...
I think the difference between us is that I never remember this episode being good. And so every time I watch it, I'm so surprised and compelled
surprised, right?
that, hey, it's good, and I'm really into it. I actually get really into this when I watch it.
And this is actually one of the most recent episodes I watched.
Yeah, and so you've seen it, you know what to expect,
yeah.
And so you're like, I actually can think of things that I don't like about this episode, or that bring it down for me. And I'm like, I'm sitting here, I just watched this episode, I can't think of anything that, specifically would cause me to rate it down, and yet... I don't know. It's weird.
I think, and I'm not... I don't want you to think that I'm contradicting something you said earlier when I say this, but I do want to make the point that for a show that is episodic and that can get away with the excuse of we don't need to follow this up at all by showing how Geordi is getting through this pain that the Romulans put him through, while after a line at the end of an episode like that Troy has, like it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit. It seems a little bit off kilter that at the same time you can do things like plant Sela.
Yeah.
To then show up again later.
Yes, but one
so
of
like
these
we can
was
plant these.
Bad idea.
No, I totally agree with you. But she's there in silhouette. It's super goofy. That doesn't bring the episode down for me. It's kind of
only in retrospect.
There's a part of me that likes the idea of setting things up like this in an episodic show that are going to come back later on. But at the same time, it seems like a show that it's kind of trying to have its cake and eat it too a little bit. Where it's like, well, we don't have to follow up character stuff, but we can plant other things, like we can plant political ideas and things like that.
Yeah, but in a sense, I mean, they
that.
sort of did that over the course of the 7, seasons.
Right.
And so you had the Klingons progressing, and I mean, there were different relationships between the Federation Romulans and Klingons, just really sort of changed around a whole lot.
Yeah, but you didn't have these mysteries like this that were just planted.
No, I think this was really the only one, and it didn't work.
And it was kind of stupid, yeah.
So...
All right.
I think we can maybe discount that one.
Well, hey, everybody, thanks a lot for watching Ask the Treksperts. Let us know what you thought of The Mind's Eye, if you got a chance to watch it, and put your comments and your ratings in the comments. Also, if there's something that you'd like us to talk about in a future video, if there's a question you'd like to ask for Ask the Treksperts, be sure and leave that in the comments as well. And thanks as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
We'll see you next time.